Hello students, welcome to Showrupsar classes. My name is Professor Himadri Datta. In today's class, we'll talk about the demand pull and cost push inflation. It is demand pull and cost push inflation. So, as you can see in the earlier video, we talked about adaptive expectation. So, first we'll write down the equation of adaptive expectation, which is the current year value of inflation depends on previous year's inflation, that it follows the inertia, minus depends on UC, which is cyclical unemployment rate, and also supply shock. In the basic model of adaptive expectation, we assume these two things to be constant. This is how we derive the diagram for this, that is given UC at UN. We talked about this UC at UN. The Phillips curve shifts rightward only when there is change in expectation, that is which depends on the previous year's inflation. Only when there is change in expectation, that is inertia, the inflation rate changes, so the Phillips curve shifts from PC1 to PC2, a higher level. So due to this, the inflation rate also increases given UC level. Now, in the most developed countries, we see that inflation rate always depends on the previous year's inflation rate. That is, the expected inflation rate always equal to the previous year's inflation rate. Why? Because inflation rate over the years are constant in these countries, in most developed countries like, let's say, USA. So okay, but here we have made two assumptions, that is cyclical unemployment, that is a deviation of actual unemployment from natural level of unemployment, and supply shock, which can be in our favor or which can be adverse. They are constant. But in this, while defining demand pull and cost push inflation, will do what? Will assume they are not to be constant, rather they are varying. Okay, so we'll relax this assumption of them to be constant. I'll rewrite the equation so that it will be better for you to understand. Now, for demand pull inflation, what happens? In demand pull inflation, say the equation is like this. The inflation depends on previous year's inflation plus V. Suppose these two are constant. Rather, let's say due to increase in aggregate demand, extremely sorry, I'm repeating again. Suppose, say, the unemployment rate, that is UC, the cyclical unemployment rate, has fallen. So which means people are more employed. So when people are more employed, they will have more income. So when they have more income, so obviously they will demand more. So as a result, aggregate demand curve will increase. So as the aggregate demand curve has increased, so the price level, the producers, the suppliers will also increase their price, the price of the products, the commodities, because the demand is high. So you see there is increase in inflation. So when UC falls, there is increase in inflation. So due to demand pull, the inflation has increased. This is why we call it demand pull inflation. Now, with the help of a diagram, if you want to show it. Let's say this is the aggregate demand curve, this is the aggregate supply curve, short-run aggregate supply curve, okay? Now, say aggregate demand curve has increased. So now, as you can see, as aggregate demand curve shifted to rightward, the price level has also increased. So, which eventually states that increase in aggregate demand rate, which is caused by decrease in unemployment rate, decrease in cyclical unemployment, causes or it leads to increased inflation. This is known as demand pull inflation. So, here the inflation of this year does not only depends on previous year's inflation, but also there is another factor, that is unemployment rate, the cyclical unemployment rate, which is inversely related to the inflation rate. Okay. Now, we'll talk about cost push inflation. Now, what is cost push inflation? Cost push inflation is basically, suppose supply shock, due to change in supply shock, that is, there is adverse effect of V. Inflation is expected to increase. Okay. Now, if there is adverse supply shock, what will happen? If there is supply shock, what usually happens? What is supply shock? How it arrives? Okay. For that, again we will draw AD curve, in short run, AS curve. Why are we writing short run average supply curve here, aggregate supply? Because in Phillips curve, we usually take into account the short run aspect of it. In long run, the Phillips curve is vertical. We'll talk about it in later videos, the elasticities of these two. But for the time being now, we'll say suppose the cost has increased due to supply shock. Let's say there are different factors which may affect the cost of products. Say the short run average supply curve, so that shifts rightward. Now you can see the output level has fallen. So that is, this is, we say, adverse effect of V, supply shock. Due to this, the price level has increased. So this is caused by this supply shock. So this is called the cost push inflation. That is what? That is, when cost has increased, this leads to, when cost has increased, producers, those who are producing the commodities, they have less incentive to produce more. That is, their profitability has gone down. So what will they do? They will now produce less. So this is called adverse supply shock. So as they are producing less now, so what will happen? So as a result, the supply curve, short-run supply curve, will shift to leftward from SRAS 1 to SRAS 2. So as a result, the price level has increased and inflation has taken place. So this is known as cost push inflation. So how cost push and inflation has taken place? Due to increase in cost price, the increase in cost. So output has fallen, which lead to increased price, inflation. So in today's video we have shown there are two aspects when we relax the assumption that these two are constant. So then we get these two concepts, demand pull and cost push inflation. Now what is disinflation and how what is sacrifice ratio, that we'll talk about it in the next video. For the time being, thank you for watching this video. If you have any query, if you have any doubt, or if you have any suggestion to give, please WhatsApp me on this number 98, as you can see 98, or I am writing it here, 9836793076. Thank you for watching this video. Have a nice day.